And so publishers were doing really well. And the biggest thing was memoirs, and politics were getting more popular. And I think that Vertigo was, and a lot of other publishers were looking at the successes of things like Persepolis, which Persepolis really changed comics in the United States forever, because this was suddenly a comic that comics readers were reading, and just adults who don't usually read comics were also reading. So everyone wanted to have, you know, their memoir written by a woman. So I think that Vertigo, in a way, was they were looking for something more like that, and they had the extra money from the success of The Watchmen, and they wanted to invest in some original graphic novels from people. So they were willing to take a risk on the complete unknown, and I'm really thankful for that.
Also was sicherlich einer der Auslöser war, was sie eben beschrieben hat, das war im Jahr 2008, wo wir natürlich eben die Finanzmarktkrise gehabt haben und die ganze Wirtschaft halt eben zusammengebrochen war. Und da natürlich eben auch die Verlage sich überlegt haben, was kann man versuchen, was kann man produzieren, was halt eben mehrere Leute lesen und was eine größere Schicht eben erreicht. Und vor dem Hintergrund ist hier eben, hat DC nach einem Buch gesucht, das typische Comicleser lesen, aber auch eben Erwachsene, die sich halt eben für Themen über den Comic hinaus interessieren. DC hatte zu dem Zeitpunkt noch recht guten Erfolg, einfach dadurch, dass die Graphic Novel Watchmen sehr erfolgreich verfilmt wurde und im Grunde mit dem Geld, das DC bei Watchmen dann verdient hat, hat man dann sich gesagt, gut, können wir uns auch mal das Risiko leisten und mal ein neues Thema angehen, und hat dann eben How to Understand Israel in 60 Days produziert. So, did they get the investment back, the Watchmen they spent to you?
I hope so. Yeah, and you know, I owe a lot also to my editor, John Mencken, because I think he was just personally interested in the story. He kind of had a similar background as me, a secular Jewish American from the East Coast who had a lot of the same questions about his identity in relationship to Israel, because it is so hard to wrestle with these politics and these identity issues. So I think that he really just, he liked the story and he wanted to push for it because he, yeah.
Okay, ein großer Antreiber für dieses Buch war dann tatsächlich eben auch dieser John Mencken, den sie dort getroffen hat, der das Buch als eben Herausgeber von DC vorangebracht hat. Einfach deshalb auch, weil es da sehr, sehr viele Parallelen gibt. Eben auch er ist ein jüdischen Glaubens in Amerika und ja, hat in dem Buch wahrscheinlich sehr viel gefunden, was er aus seinem eigenen Leben kennt. So, is there more future work with DC and Vertigo?
I don't think so. Not because the book's doing fine, but DC, I don't know if people know here, but they just went through a massive restructuring. They laid off a whole lot of people, including my editor actually, which was surprising because he's had a lot of other books that are really successful, but they're just changing, they're going back to what they really are focused on usually, which is more mainstream superhero stuff, which means that a lot of the experimental stuff they were doing is kind of pushed aside for the meantime.
Also, ob noch was bei DC von ihr scheint, ist eher unwahrscheinlich. Einfach vor dem Hintergrund, DC ist stark umstrukturiert worden. Die experimentellen Dinge, wie eben auch das Buch von Sarah Glidden, sind eher im Papierkorb gelandet oder outgesourced worden. Und eben auch ihr Editor ist mittlerweile auch nicht mehr bei DC. Also insofern wird sie auch da nicht mehr die große Unterstützung haben. Yeah, so we're lucky that your book is in Germany. So
I'm lucky.
So how was it for you to come to a German festival to talk in the Jewish Museum in Munich about your book?
I'm honored. I'm really excited to be here.
Also gut, das brauchen wir ja kaum übersetzen. Aber sie ist trotzdem stolz, hier zu sein. So, yeah, so maybe is there something you want to talk to?
I don't have any questions.
Maybe questions?
Yeah.
Es gibt ein Interview, für Fragen gibt es da auch noch so ein Mikro im Raum. Gibt es irgendwelche Fragen, die Sie an Sarah Glidden stellen möchten?
We can give them one of these.
Might be easier for us to talk when we give
maybe I can say it so.
Yeah.
Hope you understand me. I'm interested in your practical work during your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make, I saw a lot of sketches, but a lot of text too. Did you have a storyboard in your mind during the trip, or the layout, or did you really only make a diary and the layout comes later back in New York?
It's funny because before I went on the trip the first time, I was thinking about, okay, what is the structure of the book going to be? Which is crazy because you can't know until you go what you're going to experience and stuff. So I also thought that I would be doing lots of sketching and drawing, and I had this big fat sketchbook. But the sketches that you're seeing here are some of the only sketches that I actually got to do, because most of that big book was just full of writing, because there's so much information, so many people, and you want to put down also for this book, because it was going to be memoir, all of my personal feelings and thoughts about what was going on. So it was really just writing all the time. I took a lot of photos just for reference, but I wasn't really prepared because this is my first time doing something like this. So now I know what I'm doing a little bit more. When I went to Israel and Palestine this last week, I had a recorder. I was recording, and like there's a way that you can take notes while you're recording interviews where you mark down the times when people say interesting things, like much more prepared with that stuff. But yeah, on this trip it was just kind of like, well, I guess I'll just write everything down. So I really did try to write down everything. There are a lot of scenes in the book where someone's giving a monologue. Those are pretty much word for word what they said, because I was writing so quickly just to get everything down.
Gut, muss ich jetzt auch nochmal alles verarbeiten? Ich habe mir weniger Notizen gemacht als Sie während Ihrem Trip. Ja, sie hat eben gesagt, die Frage war ja halt eben, ob sie eine Idee hatte, wie sie das Buch eben gestalten möchte, ob es dann ein Storyboard gab, den sie schon im Kopf hatte oder den sie produziert hat, weil das, was wir hier sehen, sind im Wesentlichen halt eben Text, der hier und da mit einer Illustration halt eben garniert ist. Und sie hat eben gemeint, dass sie wirklich am Anfang ein sehr, sehr dickes Sketchbook dabei hatte, weil sie gesagt hat, ich zeichne alles, was ich hier sehe. Ja, mache ganz viele Skizzen und daraus kann ich dann ein tolles Buch machen. Und dann hat sie plötzlich gemerkt, dass das einfach so viele Informationen waren, die sie da aufgenommen hat, dass sie dann eigentlich erst kaum zum Zeichnen gekommen ist und wirklich sehr, sehr viel mitgeschrieben hat, um diese ganzen Eindrücke festzuhalten und hier und da dann wirklich bei den Extremen das dann halt mit einer Skizze dann eben gemacht hat. Mittlerweile wandelt sich das so ein bisschen bei den Themen, die sie macht, arbeitet sie da schon etwas grafischer, dass sie wirklich auch mehr Skizzen dann im Vorfeld macht.
I have more of a question concerning your processing of thought. I guess those 60 days also include practice or your reading for the trip. But then when you came back, was it like, did you start reading again, or did you discuss with friends or people on the trip, or how did you kind of process what was going on in your head?
Yeah, you're exactly right about the 60 days being with the preparation, because the weeks before I left, I just basically devoted all of my free time to reading everything I could. But when I got back, you know, I started storyboarding on the plane, and when I got back, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start. But then I kind of quickly realized that I needed some time to process this, because it was just too intense, and it was a very emotional experience, this trip. So I did do a lot of talking with my boyfriend, especially, who is in the book. He's not my boyfriend anymore, but not because of the trip.
It's not because of
No. But he actually helped me edit the whole thing, and we're still really good friends. But he was great to talk about, because you really just need to, like, when you still don't even know how you feel emotionally about something, how can you start writing about it? So I needed some time to just let that trip turn into something in the past, because then you can more reflect on, okay, how did that change me? What was I really going through when I went through this moment? Because it was just still too present tense when I got back. So I did spend about 6 months. I actually worked on another project in the meantime. Just went back to some older stuff that I had been putting aside. And then finally I felt like I was ready to go. And then when I was writing it, I did do, you know, some further research and stuff just to check my facts and to give myself some more information. But most of the meat of what I had was put in the book was from either before the trip or during the trip.
Ja, also sie hat eben gesagt, sie hat sich natürlich sehr intensiv auf das Buch vorbereitet. Das war für sie eine große Erfahrung, sehr emotional auch alles. Und vor dem Hintergrund hat sie dann sich nicht gleich hinsetzen können und dann sagen, und jetzt verarbeite ich das alles und setze das um. Da hat sie erstmal eine Weile gebraucht, damit sich das alles setzt. Gut, I think I don't translate the thing with your boyfriend. I think it's privacy.
Okay.
I guess nearly everybody understood it in English too.
Yeah.
Und ja, dann hat sie 6 Monate lang erstmal andere Projekte übernommen, bis sie sich tatsächlich dann an das Buch angesetzt hat. Wobei sie dann auch sagt, dadurch, dass ich das dann erstmal gesetzt hatte und eben diese Emotionen sich dann auch wieder etwas gelegt haben, ist das dann doch auch sehr dicht an den Erfahrungen, die sie dort gemacht hat und eben auch an den spiegelt es das im Trip eigentlich sehr gut wieder. Weitere Fragen?
Is Germany the only country except the United States where your book is published until now?
No, it's also in French, Spanish, Italian, and Dutch. So I was just in Spain and France and Belgium and the Netherlands a couple weeks ago, actually. And that was really exciting too.
Is it also approved?
No, actually, there was a publisher that was interested. Well, one of the editors of this publishing house was interested. But the problem with translating books into Hebrew is, first of all, you have to flip everything backwards, which, you know, you could just flip the images, but then if there's signage, you have to like go back in and Photoshop it. So it's a very like labor-intensive process. And then you have, you know, Israel is, you know, a pretty educated population. A lot of people speak English and read English. So if you look at the small percentage of people who are into comics in a very small country, and then the percentage of those who don't read English, you have not enough people to really justify spending all that time on a comic. And actually Mao's, which is, you know, arguably the masterpiece of the graphic novel, was only published in Hebrew last year, which I was surprised about.
Never heard about this. This is for me a new information too.
Yeah.
Ja. 2 Fragen eben zusammengefasst. Eben ob das Buch im Ausland auch eben produziert wurde, hier eben Spanien, Frankreich ist es produziert worden. Dann die nächste Frage, die für mich sehr spannend ist, ob es das Buch eben auch auf Hebräisch gibt. Da hat sie dann eben gesagt, dass es schwierig, einfach weil man dann eben auch das ganze Buch bearbeiten müsste und eben auch die ganzen Panels umstellen müsste und eben dadurch, dass die Menschen in Israel sehr gebildet sind, weitestgehend sehr gut Englisch sprechen, ist das auch keine Schwierigkeit, dort das Buch auf Englisch zu produzieren. Was für mich auch eine interessante Neuigkeit war, ist tatsächlich, dass das Meisterwerk der Graphic Novel in Bezug zum jüdischen Themen Maus von Art Spiegelmann auch erst letztes Jahr als hebräische Auflage produziert wurde. Da waren noch 1, 2 Meldungen, hatte ich irgendwo gesehen. Achso, das war die gleiche, okay, danke. Da hinten meldet sich jemand, ich habe sie ja auch.
My question is, when you were traveling with a group, I guess you were traveling with a group, did you tell anyone about your plan to make a comic book out of your experience, and how did people actually respond? How did the guys respond and the people you were traveling with? Because it is a strange thing to be told that you're going to be part of the comic later on. So did you get any responses to that?
You know, I told everybody, I'm not sure how many people actually thought that, you know, anything would happen from it. Even I didn't know if anything was going to come of it. When I had the interview for Birthright, I talked to the director of the tour company, and I said, you know, I'm coming on this, I'm going to make a comic about it. I hope that's okay with you. And he said, it's fine. You know, you might find something different than what you're expecting. I said, okay, whatever. And then I did tell the people on the trip, and even more than telling, I was the nerdy kid constantly writing in this sketchbook, and I think they just kind of got used to it pretty quickly, like, oh, she's the one taking notes all the time. At the end of the trip, you know, I stood up and asked anyone if they wanted their names changed, but nobody raised their hand, because I really, you know, it's one thing to say, like, okay, someone's working on a project, but no one actually thought anything was going to come of it. But people thought it was cool that I could draw, I guess. But yeah, I don't think anyone really thought much of it, and people